Hey, let's talk about self-care for women that have been experiencing shock. Welcome to my channel, Surviving Shock. And remember, shock is anything that you might have experienced that has thrown your life for a loop or, has changed your life in some way. Some of us may have experienced a divorce, a loss of a parent suddenly, or a spouse, a breakup, a loss of a job, unemployment. Maybe there's something with your kids. And there's this overwhelming feeling that you have, and you just can't get out of that, and you're stuck. So, self care is so important. We've heard all these things about self-care. We've heard that, there's this myth that self-care takes a lot of time, like you have to have it planned. I know I remember I used to think that, in like 15 years ago when I was burnout and overwhelmed in my career and running from one place to another place with children, I always thought, oh, if I could just take a vacation, or maybe if I get a massage, or maybe I'll schedule my nails being done. Those were all great at that moment, but they didn't last for months at a time. And so I'm here to talk about how do we incorporate self-care into our daily routine, and it doesn't have to cost you money, and it doesn't have to take a lot of time. I've worked with so many women that have literally told me, I don't have time for self-care. Well, if you don't take a couple minutes, just a couple minutes a day can start to change those overwhelmed feelings that you have. So self-care is uh, can be broken down into a couple different categories. And there's a self-care assessment that I use with some of my clients that breaks down where in my life or in my day do I neglect self-care. And then we can start to look at how do we implement a sustainable plan for the day. But self-care can be broken down into a couple, into different categories. So you have the physical part of self-care. And physical part of self-care is about that, not just your uh, getting movement, but physical self-care is about eating healthy, having good nighttime sleep routines, staying hydrated, and then, of course, that movement. And even self-care in physical things is getting your regular health checkups, making sure that, you're checking your blood pressure and things like that are also part of the physical part of self-care. And so many people that are in that overwhelmed state, they think that, they have to be exercising to be that meeting that physical piece. And I have heard, people, they're like, how does staying hydrated help me? Or how does eating healthier help me? Well, if we're not doing those things, then we start to, neglect our physical piece of our body. Then we start to get exposed to illnesses a lot easier. We might, if we're not eating healthy, when we're feeling this overwhelmed, we start to eat unhealthy because it's comfort food. And so then, a month goes down the road and you've gained 10 pounds. Now those feelings of maybe guilt kick in and they pile on top of the other feelings that you're having. And so that physical piece of self-care can literally be, making sure that we are eating healthy, nutritious foods, full of, nutrients, making sure that we have the fruits and the vegetables and the fiber and protein inside all of our meals, staying hydrated during the day and not looking for those comfort foods, and then not looking to, some people use alcohol to comfort those feelings. And so then that's an unhealthy coping skill. So staying hydrated with, fresh water during the day, those all can be part of, and again, it's incorporated into your day. So that's self-care right there in your day. And then if we can put in movement, that's even better. Even if it's just gentle stretches, if you are working at a desk all day long, if you can put movement of gentle stretches into your day. And then also taking that lunch break. So many of us think that if I work through my lunch, I can get my job done sooner and maybe I can leave on time versus staying late. Or I just have so much to do that I'm not going to eat. I'm just going to eat at my lunch, where we really need to be taking our lunch break. And if we can incorporate getting outside during that time, that's even better, because then we are getting some fresh air, which can change the way we feel about ourselves. Getting sunshine is a natural vitamin D, so that is for sure helpful to get in the middle of the day for self-care. And then there are the components of emotional and mental health in regards to self-care. And those pieces can be, recognizing our emotions. I've talked before about regulating our emotions. It takes awareness. So, looking at that awareness piece of self-care, in awareness of our emotions. So acknowledging our emotions, then maybe taking the time to journal them about them. That's all part of self-care. And then there's the social piece of self-care. And the social piece is, connecting with friends, connecting with loved ones, spending a few minutes texting or phone calling them, or asking for a lunch date or a dinner date. Excuse me. And then the boundaries, having our clear boundaries inside that social piece of self-care. Being able to say no without that guilt feeling is so helpful. We so many times when I know I felt overwhelmed, and I'm sure you do, is taking on too many things, you know, taking on too many roles or saying yes to too many things. And so that can be something that increases that overwhelm, is just saying yes to everything and then realizing we just don't have the time for everything. So having those boundaries while practicing that social self-care is very important. It's okay to say no. And so those are things that we can do, but then it's like looking for the joy in our day. What brings me joy? And so what puts a smile on my face? Sometimes it might be a dance in the kitchen while I'm cooking dinner, or just a talk with a friend. So our daily self-care to really be sustainable is looking at how can I incorporate things for me inside my daily plan. I do not need to plan a half an hour at a time. I do not have to spend any money. So starting my day maybe with a journal and some yoga stretches, getting grounded, and then in the middle of the day, if I feel that kind of sense of overwhelmed or a lot of things are going on, taking some deep breath, using that box breathing envisioning, looking at a picture in my living room and breathing with the picture, breathing in for 4, holding it for 4, letting it out for 4, holding it for 4. Again, gets me grounded. And now I end my day, maybe with a phone call with a friend, dance in my kitchen, and then I end my day of looking at what brought me joy today. And none of those things cost me money, and none of those things took me longer than a few minutes at a time. And those things help me feel less overwhelmed over time than having a spa day. Sure, the spa day is great. I love those. Those are fun. Why wouldn't we? But those feelings of that spa day doesn't last the whole entire week. My feelings of overwhelmed or, burnout will build up. And the self-care plans that I'm using, when we're using those daily, and again, they don't cost money and they don't take a lot of time, they help that feeling of overwhelmed. And it's consistency, right? It's consistency. And it's the mindset of, if I miss the self-care practices. So maybe when you're first starting, when you're first starting to try to implement self-care into your daily plan to help with your overwhelmed feelings, it's going to take practice. It's going to take time to put it into your day. But if you miss something, like maybe you didn't journal this morning and that's something that you want to start trying to do, having that mindset of, well, I'm human and life happened and I'll do it again tomorrow, versus, oh God, I failed at that. I'm never going to be good at this. And I didn't start my day that way. So I might as well forget about doing anything else during the middle of the day to help my self-care. I'm just going to go on with my old habits. And then you get home in the evening and you're overwhelmed. And then it just continues. So recognizing that you're human and mistakes happen and life happens, right? So we can avoid, that buildup of overwhelmed by changing the mindset that we have as well. It's consistency. So building that consistency routine is the best, method. It's not like, well, I failed, so I'm just going to forget doing this ever again, or it's not working. It's consistency over time helps us. It will start to feel better. It's not oh, I do it today and I feel better. Like the spa makes you feel better right away. But again, it doesn't build up over time. This kind of self-care, I was looking at how do I implement it during my daily routine will help those feelings of overwhelmed over time. So if this is resonating with you, make sure that you like and subscribe below so that you don't miss more information that I bring to you in surviving shock.